Hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to another live Manchester United news, transfer news, and update show. Lots of talk coming out today on Benjamin Sesko. Lots of updates, lots of positive updates suggesting Newcastle United are walking away from the deal and pursuing other targets. This has come out from Newcastle United-based sources as well. So we're going to talk about the latest on that. Newcastle walking away from Newcastle walking away from Sesko is a very strong indication that the player has chosen Manchester United. We've been told he prefers Manchester United for a while, but Newcastle now reportedly walking away from the deal, being said by Newcastle briefed sources. So this is a big boost for United. I'm going to give the latest on Sesko. Ineos given the green light to do the deal. Sesko wants the move. We're now trying to get Leipzig to lower the fee. We're working on the deal, and a breakthrough is expected soon. Antony had offers from Saudi. Antony has rejected offers from other clubs in order to wait for Real Betis, which is incredibly frustrating because Betis keep telling Antony to reject all the offers, so Man United have no choice but to do a loan deal. Betis are taking us for mugs, but when you loan out Rashford for so cheap to Barcelona, of course Betis are going to try and do the same thing, which is incredibly frustrating. We'll talk about that. And of course, Sesko coming in now means it could be the end of Hojlund. And I think we're going to get Sesko. When we were first linked to Sesko, I said, guys, I don't think we're getting him. I don't think we can afford him. Like, when we were first linked to Sesko, I generally kept saying, I think he's going to go to Newcastle. I don't think we're going to get him. I don't think we can afford this. But now I'm feeling quite optimistic that we're going to get this deal done, particularly with reports of Newcastle walking away. So let's get into the news. Let's get into what has been said as well. There is updates on Dortmund going in for Sancho taking a wage cut. There is updates in Chelsea ready to make a bid for Garnacho at the end of the window. Antony waiting for Betis. We could be getting some movements on outs. There's rumours United might hijack Hayden Hackney. Nothing super credible on that. Nothing super advanced in midfield. There's sort of talk that United will probably look at someone like Carlos Baleba next year, and we're going to ignore midfield for the season and fix attack. And next summer it'll be fixing midfield and build up. We'll have to wait and see. But let's get into the news, let's get into the updates, and let's get into the stories on Benjamin Sesko. So Craig Hope is a Newcastle-based journalist and a very good source when it comes to Newcastle news. He's clearly briefed by the club. Now, I can't find exactly where he said this, so we're going through an aggregator account. But apparently, according to Craig Hope, Newcastle have pulled out of the race to sign Benjamin Sesko. Apparently, Newcastle have got out of the race, and Craig Hope is a very good source of information when it comes to Newcastle news. It was also said, apparently, that Newcastle are now likely to make a move for Aston Villa's Ollie Watkins. Talks also remain ongoing over Brentford's Johan Wissa. Benjamin Sesko was the top target, but Manchester United have made a move for the Slovenian. So, reports coming out from Newcastle-based sources and credible, and I'm going to say the word credible because I think Craig Hope is a good journalist. I think he's one of Newcastle's go-to guys, and he's briefed by the club. So this is a well-informed Newcastle journalist coming out and saying that Newcastle have pulled out of the race and are ready to make a move for someone like Watkins. They're also talking over Wissa. Now, the situation is pretty crazy with Newcastle United right now because Liverpool made a bid for Isak. They rejected it. Ben Jacobs says that Liverpool are not going to go back in and make another bid. So maybe Isak's staying and maybe they're walking away from Sesko. It could be the case. Isak's got 3 years left on his deal. Newcastle are in a strong position in that sense. But when Isak is forcing a move and saying, I'm not going to play for you next season, Newcastle don't want to risk keeping Isak and him not playing next season. So Newcastle may have to lower the fee for Isak because Liverpool is sort of playing them into that despite being in a somewhat strong position financially. So they've obviously looking for that Isak replacement. I think when Newcastle sign a striker, they will talk with Liverpool again about Isak because I don't think Eddie Howe will want Isak next season if he's acting like this. It's a bit of a red flag. So even though Liverpool are not considering another bid for Isak, I think Liverpool will consider another bid for Isak. But I think what's slowing it down is maybe Man United going for Sesko and Newcastle not finding their striker alternative. And, you know, they want Sesko. They want to do deal for Sesko. They're financially willing to pay what it takes to bring Sesko in. But Sesko prefers Man United. And we've been told that from many sources he prefers Manchester United. And Man United are trying to get him to get Newcastle to back off. Because if Newcastle leave the race for Benjamin Sesko, Leipzig don't have anything on us. Right now, Newcastle will pay up the 75 million euros Leipzig want, whereas we don't want to pay up 75 million euros plus add-ons. We want to get him for less than that. So we want him to basically push Newcastle into walking away from the deal so we can get the price down as well. Craig hopes that a second bid is being made for Isak. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. I did a video on my second channel about Isak and Liverpool and Newcastle. It's this really ridiculous situation, if we're going to be totally honest. But it's just games. It's all games. Liverpool will go back in for Isak. Unless Isak signs a new contract at Newcastle, which has a release clause in and higher wages, a little bit like Wolves did with Cunha. Cunha was linked to leaving Wolves. Then Cunha signed this new contract with a release clause in and much higher wages. Unless Isak does that at Newcastle, I think Newcastle and Isak, it hasn't just ended here. I think they'll go back in for Isak. I think Newcastle is work on getting an Isak replacement, seeing if they can get Isak to agree to some kind of terms. We could have a release clause for next season. I think that's what Newcastle want to do. I think Newcastle are walking away from Sesko, realised he prefers Manchester United, now exploring other more realistic options, and we'll see what happens with Isak and Liverpool. At the end of the day, I don't want Isak at Newcastle. I don't want him at Liverpool. I'd love him at Man United. Florian Plettenberg said that we inquired about Isak, but surely he's making that up because there's no way we'd ever get Isak. But that's the situation there with Liverpool and Isak. And I think the Isak money is pushing Newcastle to really get a striker. And I think Newcastle are in a much stronger financial position to get Sesko than us. So Newcastle walking away is a big boost for Manchester United, because the thing that's stopping United and Sesko is the price tag. And if we get Sesko to reject Newcastle, so it's only Man United, Leipzig might be in a position where they lower the price tag. But also, Christian Vivel is working on this deal. And the thing about Christian Vivel is he's worked with RB clubs and he knows their negotiation tactics. He knows how the RB clubs operate. He knows their negotiation tactics. He knows how they go about things. So Christopher Vivel working on this deal could also help us get it for a good price. People keep asking me about Donnarumma. Unless Onana is sold or unless Bayendier is sold, nothing is happening. Unless a goalkeeper is sold, nothing is happening. Bayendier should go, but Lemens is seen as a more realistic replacement. With Donnarumma, I think his agent is using us to get him the best move because PSG are already looking at replacements. Vivel got Nkunku to Chelsea, exactly. Vivel knows how to negotiate with the RB clubs. He knows how to negotiate with the RB clubs. So let's talk about everything we know on Benjamin Sesko, and then I want to talk about Hojlund, and I want to talk about Antony. So Newcastle have reportedly pulled out of the race for Sesko. Newcastle are now likely to make a move for other options. United have now made a move for Benjamin Sesko. Newcastle seem to be looking elsewhere, which is what Manchester United want in order to drive the price down. Romano or Ornstein haven't confirmed that Newcastle are completely out the race, but there's a suggestion by many credible sources pretty much saying that Sesko prefers Manchester United. It's basically been said by many sources that Sesko prefers Manchester United, but Newcastle are in a stronger financial position. So what else has been said in regards to Benjamin Sesko? There's been a lot of information coming out about this potential move and everything ongoing. And it has been said by Graham Bailey today that inside Manchester United, there's internal confidence that they will win the race for Sesko, and Sesko is now ready to play under Ruben Amorim. I wouldn't say that is essentially new news, because I think we've been told by a million sources the last few days that Sesko wants to move. You had Ben Jacobs obviously say that United are front runners. There's been positive talks. We've obviously had other good sources saying United are optimistic they will get the deal done, and also given the green light for the deal. We obviously covered that in my video earlier today. Ben Jacobs also said that Sesko had been talking to Manchester United players on the United stand yesterday. He went on the United stand yesterday and he said, if United and Newcastle were to agree a deal for Leipzig, Benjamin Sesko would pick United. But he also said, if Man United bid for Sesko, I believe it would be because they have got 100% kind of buy-in verbal terms with the player. I think Manchester United and Sesko have had some kind of communication, and Sesko's verbally agreed to join Manchester United. Romano even said things like Sesko's very excited about the prospect of joining Manchester United. So there's been a lot of positive indications, and the big one and the big update that came out last night in regards to Sesko was Romano obviously saying that United have informed RB Leipzig they're prepared to send in a bid for Sesko if the player accepts the destination. And I think the fact that Newcastle are now walking away from the deal says to me that the player has accepted the destination of Manchester United, and it could be getting closer. In regards to Sancho news, Ben Jacobs did say on the United stand yesterday that Sancho is willing to take a wage cut to get a move. And Berger _PJ, Patrick Berger, who's a good Bundesliga journalist, said that Dortmund, they value Sancho's qualities, but also have reservations given the prospect of a third attempt, the potential criticism of lacking creativity, and the fact that he had no future at either United or Chelsea. But Manchester United would let Sancho go for 17 million. Dortmund have interest. Florian Plettenberg said that Dortmund are working on a deal for Jadon Sancho and talks are ongoing. And we know from Sport Bild that Jadon Sancho is said to have signalled to Lars Ricken, who's the managing director, and Sebastian Kehl, the sporting director of Dortmund, that he'd be willing to sacrifice a lot of salary to join Borussia Dortmund. And there's a 17 million price tag on the player, and it's now being discussed internally at Dortmund. It was then said by Sky Germany that there is contact between United Borussia Dortmund and Sancho is open to a return to Dortmund, is what's been said. Obviously, Sancho isn't looking like he's going to get that move to Juventus. That is now on hold due to Sancho's wage demands. He didn't get that move to Chelsea because of his wage demands as well. I'm just looking at the chat. Sesko rejected the sponsor already. He won't move unless he feels ready to step up. Well, he rejected us 3 years ago because he's at RB Salzburg, and it's very normal to go from RB Salzburg to RB Leipzig. Sesko rejected Arsenal last summer because he didn't feel like he was ready to take the step up. People forget that. Arsenal were in for Sesko last summer, and I think Sesko thought he needed another year, and I like that. I like that Benjamin Sesko didn't rush a move to Man United 3 years ago. He didn't rush a move to Arsenal last year. He felt that he needed to spend another year at Leipzig to sort of develop as a player, and I like that. And look, could he do well having another year at Leipzig? Yeah, if Sesko turned around to Man United and said, actually, no, I'm going to spend another year at Leipzig and develop, I'm not going to slate Sesko for that. I'm going to slate Man United for then going in for Sesko, because clearly, I assume by going in for Sesko right now and Newcastle walking away, we found out that Sesko is going to agree to us, or I think we have verbal terms agreed with Sesko. I'm going to be completely honest. I think Manchester United have verbally agreed terms with Sesko because we wouldn't be acting like this if we hadn't. But look, I respect that Sesko rejected Arsenal last year, and then I think because he wanted to stay at Dortmund another year and he signed that new contract, which was a ridiculous contract, and his agent made it difficult to get him. But I think he's thinking about his development, which is good. And I think if Sesko is now looking at Manchester United this year, he is ready, and he believes he's ready to step up, and that's an encouraging sign. Alice, love your show. What would be acceptable for Man United next season if they do no more signings in the window? Top 8. Just get back in the top. Get back in Europe, even if it's Conference League. Not that I want Conference League, but get back in Europe. Look, top 4 is nailed on. Top 4 is Liverpool, City, Arsenal, Chelsea. That's nailed on. There's the race for 5th and 6th, and this is where it's interesting because Newcastle are the 5th best team. Yeah. But if they lose Isak and the only signing they've made is Elanga, and they're in the Champions League with their lack of depth, one injury to Joelinton and Joe Willock goes in midfield. That's a big drop off for Newcastle. Lack of depth at centre back. Nick Pope, lack of distribution. So Newcastle's competition for 5th, they haven't done enough in the window. Villa's competition for 5th, again, they're going to be in Europe. Haven't done enough in the window, don't have depth because they've lost Duran, and obviously Marco Asensio and Rashford has gone. They need attacking depth. So our competition for 5th is Newcastle and Villa, who right now I don't think have got stronger because I'm looking at the fact that Isak might leave Newcastle. Tottenham, Thomas Frank coming in, Kudus coming in. Have Tottenham done enough to go from 17th to 5th? Thomas Frank's a very good manager. I'm not sure. So there's Tottenham, Newcastle, Villa in that race for 5th. Brighton, you can never write off Brighton, but their manager is still very young and naive. There's rumours of them losing Van Heck, who's a very underrated centre-back, and they've got quite a few young players. João Pedro's a big loss. And then you've got Bournemouth. Bournemouth are going to lose their 2 centre-backs, and of course, Kirk is in the same window. Nottingham Forest have lost Elanga, and I think have been worked out a little bit more. Nuno always has a really good season, gets into Europe, and sort of gets found out the next season. And they're going to be in Europe where they're not going to be able to rotate as much. Crystal Palace could be losing Eze on top of Gay and could be in Europe, and Brentford have been raided. So if you look at I'm not saying that Manchester United are going to come 5th, but I think if you look at the Premier League table and the competition, I think if we sign Sesko, a good midfielder and a good goalkeeper, you could predict 5th. I'm not saying we're going to come 5th. I think 15th to 5th is a big thing, but I'm saying we look good in pre-season. If we get a good midfielder and goalkeeper after Sesko, with 1 game a week, it's a serious probability. We're not better than Newcastle and Villa. We're not near their level, but I'm looking at Newcastle's depth and losing Isak. Newcastle's depth, so literally 5th to 11th, 5th to 10th here. 5th to 10th here. Newcastle losing Isak, lack of depth, Champions League. Villa Lost Rashford, lost Sancho, financial problems in Europe, lack of depth. Nottingham Forest lost Elanga in Europe 2 games a week. Nuno always gets figured out. Brighton could be one to watch, but they've lost João Pedro. Bournemouth lost a lot of players. Brentford lost a lot of players. So 10th to 5th are all a lot weaker right now. They're all a lot weaker. Fulham haven't done anything because it's Fulham. Palace could be weaker off just because of the whole who they might lose. So you've got Everton who've got stronger, but you wouldn't expect them to finish above United. West Ham looked poor. United that got stronger and Tottenham got stronger. So right now, with Mbeumo and Cunha, I'd put United around 8th. All right, I'd put us around 8th. But if you've got Sesko, a good midfielder, and a good goalkeeper, we could push higher. If we play like we do in pre-season next year, and we could sustain that with 1 game a week, and the new signings perform, maybe I'm deluded. But I think United could have a better season than people think. But we've got to see what we do in the window. And maybe I'm getting too carried away with the Bournemouth pre-season game. How good was that pre-season game versus Bournemouth, guys? That honestly, that's the most I've enjoyed watching Man United in a good while. Big fan of Amadou Onana, would be open to a deal, but I don't think Villa will. I think 7th or 6th is realistic. Top 4, we know the top 4 is the same top 4 as last year. That is nailed on. That is absolutely nailed on. I agree with this comment. Haven't seen enough from Amran at United to convince me he'll finish higher than 8th, but it is possible. True. Amran, given time at Sporting, did well, but we didn't see enough of Amran last season to confidently say United would finish 5th or 6th. I think 8th is fair. We'll have to see what happens with Amran. Like Thomas Frank, yeah. Who said top? I mean, I think top 4's nailed on. Not for Man United. When I'm saying top 4's nailed on, I'm saying the top 4 is nailed on as literally City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea. Does it like I'm not saying United is going to get top 4. I think we're going to get 8th. But I'm saying top 4. I think City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea is almost nailed on. As of now, we don't know what Newcastle are going to do in the window. We don't know what Villa are going to do in the window. But as of now, I can't see Newcastle or Villa finishing above Chelsea, Arsenal, City, or Liverpool. I think those 4 are nailed on for top 4 next year. Maybe you disagree with me, but I just don't see it. Where do you think Man United's going to finish? Let me know below. But I do want to get into some more updates and stories in regards to what is going on at Manchester United. So, obviously, we just spoke about the Sesko news. Let me just check if there is any updates while I'm here. Don't know if this is relevant. Sesko's agent is apparently a Man United fan. Don't know if that's really relevant. So yeah, Ben Jacobs said that United are front runners for Benjamin Sesko. They've had some positive talks, and Sesko's keen to join even without European football. It's just been said that Ineos are given the green light for the move. Ineos are ready to bid. Romano said that Manchester United in recent hours have had contact with RB Leipzig to inform them they're prepared to bid for Sesko. They want to bid for Sesko, but only will do so if they get encouragement from Sesko to join. It's now on Sesko to decide whether he wants the move, which is interestingly there. But other reports are saying that Sesko has already signalled he wants a Manchester United move. But the big one is Rasmus Hojlund. Rasmus Hojlund could be going the other way. If Sesko is going... Rasmus Hojlund, in fact, could be used in a deal to get Benjamin Sesko to United, a creative way for United to lower the price. Because we know from Romano that they love Hojlund. RB Leipzig love Hojlund. Rasmus Hojlund is likely to leave if a deal is reached for Sesko, either through sale or loan. So, let's talk about Rasmus Hojlund, because Rasmus Hojlund has made it clear he would like to stay at United. He wants to stay at United. He wants to make it work. Does that mean he's going to stay at United? No. Rasmus Hojlund, if we bring in Sesko, we bring in Xerxes, and Ruben Amorim said to Hojlund, I don't want you. You're not going to get a lot of minutes. Hojlund isn't stupid. Hojlund's going to look at moving on. Do you know what I mean? Now, Rasmus Hojlund said in his own words that he's happy at Manchester United and he's still young and all of that and that. But David Ornstein said there's a good chance Rasmus Hojlund leaves United this summer. Hojlund wants to stay. We know that. But don't forget, we've got journalists like David Ornstein coming out saying there's a good chance Rasmus Hojlund leaves United this summer. We've got journalists like the credible Laurie Whitwell coming out and saying, Hojlund's more likely to leave than stay. There's a lot of stuff sort of coming out in regards to Hojlund going. And the interesting one, and the interesting thing that was spoken about a little bit, is the prospect of a swap deal. RB Leipzig see Hojlund as almost their dream replacement for Benjamin Sesko. Rasmus Hojlund, on his future, said after the match yesterday, I think my plan is very clear. I want to stay at United and fight for my spot. whatever happens, and Ruben Amorim has said he's happy with Hojlund, well, we know the inside United, if they get Sesko, they will indicate to Hojlund that he's probably not in the plans. What has been said in the past with Benjamin Sesko coming in is because of the price tag for Benjamin Sesko, United want to look at creative ways to do a deal. And we know that RB Leipzig is a dream. Rasmus Hojlund is a dream target for Leipzig. Romano said that Leipzig almost dream of Hojlund, and Manchester United is showing Leipzig the opportunity to include a player in a deal. Man United don't want to pay up Leipzig's asking price for Sesko, but we know that Leipzig want Hojlund. It's a dream. So if Manchester United sort of tell Hojlund he's not in the plan next season and give him indications he won't get minutes, Hojlund will change his stance and be open to an exit. And RB Leipzig could be the chance of that. And Hojlund, a plus 30 million, could get Benjamin Sesko over the line and could be Manchester United's creative way to get Sesko without spending a lot of money. I don't know what you think on that, because some people don't like the idea of giving them Hojlund and 30 million because we're replacing one young striker with another young striker. Right now, Sesko is the better player, but once if Hojlund goes to RB Leipzig and ends up being better than Sesko, it wouldn't be a good look for United. Of course, that's a possibility to be considered. I think Hojlund's going to have a really good career if he left United. I like Hojlund. I think Hojlund has got so many attributes to be a good player, but I think he's struggling at United now. He looks better in pre-season, but is that because there's no pressure on him? I think the minute there's pressure on Hojlund, the minute his confidence is low, he looks lost. The minute he starts scoring goals, he looks good. If we got a guarantee, if someone came to me and said, Alice, Hojlund's going to start the season well and he's going to be confident all season, I would keep Hojlund. If someone told me that Hojlund would be confident all season, I'd keep him, because a confident Hojlund, we saw it in his first season, we saw it in the Champions League, we saw it in that run from December to I think February where he went and scored about 8 games in a row. Rasmus Hojlund with confidence is a very good player. Rasmus Hojlund without confidence is the worst striker in the Premier League. Yeah? If you said to me that Hojlund's going to go into this season full of confidence, he's going to get service from Mbeumo and Cunha, and he's going to be rotating with Xerxes, and he's going to have a good season, I'd 100% keep Hojlund and leave Benjamin Sesko at Leipzig, because I think Hojlund's potential is crazy. But as of now, Sesko's a better player than Hojlund. As of now, I feel that Sesko would be better for us as our starting striker next year than Hojlund. Sesko is still young, Sesko is still raw, but I feel like he's more likely to make an impact. I think Hojlund, if he got away from Manchester United, got his confidence up, went to another league, could be a very good player. But I do worry that Hojlund, when the pressure's on him, when his confidence drops, he's going to fall into a hole at Man United. And it's not necessarily all Hojlund's fault. He hasn't got an experienced player to learn from. We were too reliant on him. But that's the risk with Hojlund. Some people don't like the idea of giving them Hojlund and 35 million because they're saying, well, this is another young raw striker coming in. Could we regret this? Should we just be patient with Hojlund? But the other part of me says that Benjamin Sesko was a monster last season. Not ready-made, still raw, still elements of his game that needs to improve, but he does look like a physical monster. He does look like a physical monster. Some people want to see Hojlund redemption. Some people say give them Hojlund. Some people say bad idea. Someone said 45 million plus Hojlund, good deal. I think 35 million at the most. Someone says including Hojlund and Sesko deal stupid. It is one striker for another young striker. Sesko is an upgrade on Hojlund, but is it that much of an upgrade if we're looking at potential? That's the question. Some people say they give Hojlund another chance. For me, I like Hojlund. I think he can be a good striker, but we have to go in next season with a striker that's better than Hojlund, just in case, because I don't think we can take that risk that Hojlund's going to perform next season. I think we have to go into next season with a striker. I think that as well. Like, I think Hojlund's better than. I think Hojlund could be good, but I think it's too much of a risk. Thank you very much, Nick, for the super chat. Someone confirmed that once United higher-ups, Ratcliffe and Barada or Amorim, have given Hojlund any indication they want him to go. Also, selling him means we need to sign another striker. Pointless. Apparently, as well, just to add to that, Hojlund, if he gets indication from the club that the club wants him to go, will change his stance and will leave United. Apparently, if Hojlund's told the club want him to leave, he will leave United, but right now wants to stay. It's difficult because I like Sesko, and I think Sesko right now is better than Hojlund. But I do worry that Sesko could come in, struggle, lose confidence, not get service, be in this environment at United, not do well, and we've just given them Hojlund, who was another good young player, plus 35 million for Sesko, and we've traded one young striker for another young striker, and Sesko could be raw. From watching both last season, Sesko was levels above Hojlund last season, don't get me wrong, but he played in an easier league, an easier environment, and can he translate that to United? I want Sesko, and I want a new striker, and I don't think we can go into next season relying on Hojlund. But I also think with Hojlund, we need to think about, if we do include him in a deal for Sesko, how beneficial is it? One young striker for another young striker, but we're paying them money on top of giving them our young striker. That's the question. Because if Hojlund goes to Leipzig and he reaches his potential, and Sesko comes to United and struggles and looks a bit like Hojlund, we will look at that and go, what have we done there? But I think, for me, it's not because Hojlund's bad or Sesko's bad. I think it's just easier to perform at Leipzig than United. There'll be no lack of service in this 2025 team. One thing I'll say is Hojlund didn't get a lot of service, but look at Obi's movement compared to Hojlund's. Hojlund's movement was bad. Hojlund was appalling last season. I'm not going to let 2 good pre-season games where he scored distract me from the fact he was appalling last season, and we need a new striker. We need a new striker. I like Sesko. Sesko's a bit overpriced, but if we sign him, I'm happy. But I agree. I'd rather get Mateta. I'd rather sign Mateta. I think Mateta for 40 million, if he was for sale, would be brilliant. Really proven in that sense. But yeah, let's continue on. But obviously, Leipzig are interested in doing a Hojlund swap deal. Hojlund could be used to get the price of Benjamin Sesko down. Newcastle now walking away from Benjamin Sesko, which is being reported, puts Manchester United in a position where they might be able to get Sesko's price down, which obviously puts us in a much stronger position as well. Apparently, Marinakis, the owner of Forest, believed Morgan Gibbs-White joining Tottenham would have been a backward step for the player. I mean, to be fair, Tottenham did finish below Nottingham Forest, but Tottenham are in the Champions League next season. Florian Plettenberg saying that United have inquired about Isak, but I'm not really going to give that news much attention because I feel like that's just such pointless news. We know we're never going to get Isak this summer. We know we can't afford Isak this summer, so I don't even believe stories about United inquiring for Isak. I think we're just being used for clicks. Anyway, continuing on into some other stories, I want to talk about Antony before we wrap up the show, and it's a bit annoying. We're being played by Real Betis the way we were played by Barcelona. So, Antony has rejected an offer from Saudi. Antony's also rejected an offer from clubs in Italy. We know that from the past. He's still waiting for Betis and believes that as the transfer deadline nears, as long as Antony keeps rejecting other offers, United will have no choice but to accept the loan offer. This makes me mad, you know. Makes me mad. Betis made over 50 million in sales. Antony was absolutely incredible at Real Betis. Antony's willing to take a loan move to go to Real Betis. And Betis keeps saying, Antony, you're going to have to wait until the end of the window on deadline day so Man United accept a loan deal because we ain't going to spend any money on you. Betis know that if Man United... Betis basically want Manchester United to be in a position on deadline day where they have no choice but to accept a loan deal. Absolutely zero choice. Amorim said if that is the case, then he'll bring Antony back and he has no issue with that. More players for him. Antony doesn't want that. Amorim, I think Man United should tell Antony that if Betis are only offering loan moves, then he's going to come back. And Antony won't want that ahead of the World Cup. And all of a sudden, Antony might accept these offers he gets from other clubs. And all of a sudden, if Antony accepts these offers he gets from other clubs, Betis, cough, cough, might have 30 million that they didn't have. Marcus Rashford rejected everyone for Barcelona. We were forced into a loan move with an option to buy 26 million, which is a joke. We should have got way more money for Rashford. I don't care if you hate Rashford. We should be getting more money for Rashford and we should have had an obligation to buy. Rashford should have gone to Barcelona on a 35 million obligation to buy. That would have been a much better deal. It didn't happen. Betis have sitting that Rashford, a better player than Antony, who again, like Antony, is willing to take a wage cut, is going on loan with an option to buy. Betis want the same and they're going to play us into that. And the minute the Rashford deal happened, they said Betis are going to do the same. And it's annoying because if Antony would just show some interest in other clubs, all of a sudden Betis might cough up some money. I think Man United say to Antony, you're staying if you don't get a permanent deal. And we'll see if Antony rejects other clubs. It's just annoying, but when you make it so clear these players aren't wanted, Chelsea are going to wait till deadline day to bid for Garnacho and try and get him for 40 million, which is ridiculous. Antony, they're going to try and force a loan. Dortmund, of course, Dortmund are going to try and get Sancho on loan. That hasn't even been reported yet, but we know that Dortmund will try and get a loan. And Rashford's gone on loan, and all 5 players that we wanted to get rid of, we haven't sold. Imagine if we don't make one proper sale. Imagine that. Imagine that. Because we've made it so obvious we want to get rid of these players and we can't sell any of them. We can only do loan moves. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. I'm just going to say that. You know, I think teams know how desperate we are to sell and are taking advantage a little bit. And I don't like that. Anyway, thank you for watching today's video. I'm going to see if anyone's live to redirect to, but I don't think anyone is. Oh, we've got... no, nobody's live to redirect to. But thank you for watching today's live stream. Hope you found the roundup informing. I'll be back tonight with a late night roundup if any news breaks. See you next time. Bye.